Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be going over all of the counters for all DPS in the game. Now if you want guides like this as well as super in-depth guides for pretty much every hero in the game, with new ones coming out every single day, you need to go over to GameLeap.com right now so that you can learn how to dominate. Alright, now let's get into the video. Starting with Ashe, she is a long-range hero that needs a lot of space to function properly. Dive heroes are going to be very strong against her, and denying her space is really important. For the tanks, you want to be playing D.Va, Winston, Wrecking Ball, and sometimes Doomfist to try and deny her from free firing on high grounds and pressuring her whenever possible. In the DPS category, heroes like Genji and Tracer can easily get up in her face and pressure her with teammates to finish her off. If you can't do that with Genji or Tracer, you're better off playing a sniper hero like Widowmaker or Hanzo so that you can pick her off from a longer range than she can pick you off. The best supports to deal with Ashe are going to be Ana, due to her sleep dart countering Bob and Ana's ability to just stay away from Ashe's effective range. After that, Kiriko and Lucio are your best options. Kiriko can deal long-range damage to her and easily negate dynamite damage, while Lucio can easily assist his teammates in pressuring her and denying space. Bastion has very high damage and tankiness in his sentry form, but he is extremely weak whenever he is out of it. So tanks like Roadhog can be extremely strong at picking off Bastion whenever he is out of his sentry mode, but you have to be really careful as Roadhog not to get caught off guard or hook the Bastion in when he has his sentry up. D.Va and Orisa are the strongest two heroes against Bastion in most scenarios because you're almost always going to be able to ignore his sentry form or use some of your damage mitigation to completely ignore it or save your teammates from it. In the DPS category, pretty much any hero with high burst damage can quickly take out a Bastion after or before he transforms into sentry mode. Heroes like Sojourn, Hanzo, Soldier 76, Pharah, and Echo are all great at dealing with Bastion. You really want to be on the high grounds, avoiding him on the low grounds whenever possible, and then bursting him down whenever he's out of sentry. As a support, you shouldn't really be thinking about Bastion much, but Lucio is a great option to speed your tank away from a Bastion who is transformed into sentry mode. And Ana is another great choice with her anti-nade and sleep dart being able to stop Bastion early on in his sentry if he's running over your teammates. Cassidy is more comfortable in a lot of close range situations that other DPS heroes aren't. Heroes like Roadhog can easily punish overextending Cassidy players. Reinhardt with a Lucio is another great way to run down and over aggro Cassidy. But one of the strongest tanks against all hit scans is Orisa, as she is extremely hard to kill and can easily pick off Cassidy if he's nearby. In the DPS category, you can easily counter Cassidy with longer range heroes that have high burst damage. Hanzo, Soldier, Sojourn, and Widowmaker are all great picks for outranging and bursting down Cassidy players whenever they push up to fight your team. On the support side, Kiriko is an amazing hero for saving teammates from his magnetic grenade. Moira is another great option for easily dodging his grenade and staying away from aggressive cast players. Echo is a hero that always wants to be in the air whenever possible or on high grounds, shooting you from above. In the tank category, your best options for dealing with Echo are Roadhog, Sigma, and D.Va. With Roadhog, you want to be hooking her out of the sky whenever possible, and if she has a Mercy pocket, focus on the pocket first. Sigma also wants to be constantly focusing Echo's support if possible, and pressuring Echo with his primary fire and rock whenever she's visible. D.Va is the exact same as Sigma, except for you need to be a lot more careful that she doesn't burst you down with her beam if you're getting near half health. For DPS, all of the hit scans are really great options for dealing with Echo, but if she has a pocket, you need to focus her Mercy instead of Echo herself, because if she just has that permanent healing, then you're not really going to be able to kill her. High burst damage heroes like Ashe, Widowmaker, and Sojourn are all great options at bursting down Echo if she has a pocket and the pocket is playing really safely. For supports, if your DPS aren't doing anything, a good Baptiste player can easily deal with an Echo and a Mercy just by himself. Ana is also another great option for pressuring her while she's in the sky, and Ana's sleep dart is really great for dealing with an Echo when she ults. Genji is an up-close hero that wants to skirt around your team and dive your squishy heroes. For tanks, Roadhog can be a great option for countering Genjis that are over-aggressive. His ultimate can easily counter Genji's as well by pushing him away from your team. Sigma is another great counter to Genji and his blade. Both Sigma's ultimate and his rock throw can easily deny Genjis from diving your teammates. Orisa is also quite good at dealing with Genji as well, but she doesn't really have the means to pressure Genji as much as the other two if he is constantly on high grounds. In the DPS category, Cassidy, Junkrat, Sombra, Torbjorn, and Tracer are all pretty good heroes to deny Genji space and burst him down whenever he gets up in your face. For supports, Lucio or Zenyatta's ultimate are really strong versus Genji and can completely deny a Genji's blade. But if you're playing Zenyatta, you need to be very careful that you don't get dove and die before he ultimates. Kiriko and Moira are also really good options for denying Genji's ultimate and staying alive while he dives your team. Hanzo is a medium range, high burst damage sniper that has a lot of vertical mobility. When countering Hanzo, you want to deny space on high grounds and really get up in his face so that he can't just pick off your teammates. Tanks like D.Va, Doomfist, and Winston can easily deny high grounds from Hanzo players and stop him from sniping your teammates from above. For DPS heroes, anyone that gets up in his face or can burst him down from a range, like Hanzo himself, Ashe, Widowmaker, Sojourn, and Soldier are all great picks against Hanzo. Heroes like Pharah and Echo are also really strong against Hanzo because they fly around, and Hanzo is going to have a harder time hitting heroes that are flying in the air. As a support, you should really be careful when facing Hanzos on high grounds. Kiriko, Baptiste, and Lucio are all great options at controlling high grounds from Hanzo players, as well as denying his ultimate with their defensive cooldowns. Junkrat wants to spam small choke points and small rooms to deny your team space. Any hero that can take high grounds easily is going to be a great counter to Junkrat. For tanks, D.Va is really strong at dealing with Junkrats, and her defense matrix can easily help your team get through tight choke points that a Junkrat is spamming. Roadhog is another easy way to get picks on Junkrat because Junkrat players are usually aggressively positioning and they do have somewhat of a short range, so Roadhog can easily hook him and pull him towards your team for a free pick. And finally, Orisa is great at dealing with junk on smaller maps, being able to ignore most of the damage he outputs and push through the choke point similar to D.Va would. Pharah and Echo are probably the two best DPS at pressuring and deleting Junkrat from the game by easily avoiding his mines due to their ability to fly. Longer range heroes like Sojourn, Hanzo, Ashe, Soldier, and Widowmaker are also other great counters to Junkrat's short range. And as a support, you always want to be on the high grounds if possible. Kiriko, Mercy, Lucio, and Baptiste are all great at avoiding Junkrat's mines and traps and generally dealing with Junkrat. Mei is very similar to Junkrat as she excels in fighting in smaller areas and can cut off your teammates very easily. Mobile tanks like D.Va, Winston, and Doomfist can easily escape from Mei, but are going to find it hard to actually kill her. Roadhog is a great option for dealing with Mei, but you have to be careful not to get hooked and then immediately antied if the enemy team has an Ana, so Roadhog is only a semi-counter. Orisa is probably the best hero at denying Mei from cutting her and her team away from each other. All you have to do as Orisa is, as soon as you get a wall behind you, use all of your defensive cooldowns to either turn around and break the wall, or just survive until your teammates can break the wall for you. DPS players can easily abuse Mei's short range by playing on high grounds and using long range snipers and burst damage. Ashe, Cassidy, Echo, Pharah, Hanzo, Sojourn, and Soldier are all great picks versus Mei. And for the supports, Lucio is great at getting his team away from Mei players. Kiriko and Baptiste are also great because they can climb or jump above her wall to heal teammates. Pharah is similar to Echo, but will usually be playing a little bit further back and a little bit safer. Tanks like D.Va and Sigma are great at dealing with her constant spam and can damage her back on most occasions. Orisa is okay at dealing with Pharah, but mostly can just ignore her and hope her teammates do something about it. Her Javelin can easily cancel Pharah's ultimate as well. On DPS, any long range hit scan is going to be your go-to. Widowmaker, Ashe, Cassidy, Soldier, and Sojourn are all great options at dealing with her. And if the enemy Pharah has a Mercy pocket similar to Echo, you want to be focusing on the Mercy first. Now for the supports, Mercy is actually a great counter to Pharah, as she can pocket her DPS easily, making sure that they can finish off Pharah and easily avoid Pharah's rocket splash damage. Baptiste is another amazing counter, being able to jump around, avoiding the splash damage, while easily melting Pharahs with his primary fire. Moira is another decent option at being able to damage Pharah and easily avoid her rockets as well. Reaper is a short-range hero with lifesteal that always wants to fight up close, but he only has one defensive cooldown, and oftentimes if he uses that cooldown, you can very easily pick him off. D.Va is the first amazing counter for Reaper because she can easily deny him high grounds as well as deny him from killing your teammates easily. Sigma is another great counter as well, with his rock being able to deny Reaper's space and either force out his defensive cooldown, and his eat being able to survive all of Reaper's damage pretty much. Reinhardt is another great counter to Reaper, being able to swing on Reaper, and as long as he has some support from his teammates, he should be able to out-damage Reaper's lifesteal with his armor and his hammer. And lastly, Roadhog can easily one-shot Reaper, but has no other counter once his hook is down, so be careful if you're playing Roadhog. For DPS, the name of the game is staying away. Pharah, Echo, Tracer, Junkrat, Torbjorn, Soldier 76, and Ashe are all great heroes to stay away from Reaper while damaging him from afar. And on support, Baptiste, Kiriko, Lucio, and Moira are all great options for escaping and dealing with Reaper diving you and your teammates. Soldier is a high sustaining DPS with the occasional burst damage from his rockets. Countering Soldier is similar to Ashe, where you really want to get up in his face and deny him space. D.Va, Winston, Doomfist, and Wrecking Ball are all great ways to deny Soldier from his high ground and a lot of space from just being able to shoot your teammates. Otherwise, Roadhog and Orisa are really good ways to easily survive his damage while still being able to deal damage back to him and just kind of pressure him whenever you see him. Genji, Cassidy, Reaper, Tracer, and Widowmaker are all pretty good picks versus Soldier, as well as you can either dive him and burst him down or pick him off from a long range with Widowmaker. As a support, Lucio and Zenyatta are great at countering Soldier's ultimate, but Zenyatta can quickly be bursted down by a Soldier on the high grounds if he is not careful. Sojourn is a medium to long range DPS with very high mobility. You really need to be denying Sojourn space whenever possible. D.Va, Winston, Wrecking Ball, and Doomfist are all great options for Sojourn, and you really want to be up in her face whenever possible, stopping her from bursting your teammates down. Orisa is another okay option if your teammates can deal with her, since she is very unlikely to die when focused by Sojourn, but she is going to be a bullet sponge, and Sojourn's going to easily charge up her beam on the Orisa. For DPS, Tracer and Genji are great options at dealing with Sojourn and denying space from her, as well as chasing her down easily when she uses her slide. If you can't play either of those heroes, you're going to want to play a hero like Soldier, Cassidy, or Ashe so that you can try and burst her down before she can use her railgun to delete your team. On support, you mostly want to be hiding from Sojourn so you don't get one-shotted. Lucio, Moira, Kiriko, and sometimes Ana on certain maps can be a great pick versus Sojourn. As Lucio, you really want to try and deny Sojourn's space by speeding your teammates into her and booping her backwards towards your team if she tries to slide away. Sombra is very easily countered by burst damage and playing with your teammates. Heroes like D.Va and Orisa are great options for dealing with pesky Sombra players. D.Va can easily save teammates from Sombra and can easily decloak Sombra with her primary fire by just randomly spamming around the map. Orisa can pretty much ignore Sombra until she uncloaks and then hit her with a javelin to easily force her out. Both of these tanks don't really have to worry about being hacked either. D.Va can quickly fly away and use her defense matrix, and Orisa can just use her defensive cooldowns. For DPS, Cassidy, Hanzo, Pharah, Mei, Torbjorn, and Tracer are all amazing picks for dealing with Sombra players. You want to be saving your burst damage for when she hacks a target, then quickly use your burst damage on her to force her to teleport out. For supports, Baptiste, Kiriko, and Moira are all good options for dealing with Sombra players, being able to save themselves and their teammates very easily if hacked. Symmetra is a very squishy, high sustained damage with short range. You can easily burst her down as many different heroes and quickly overrun her and her turrets. While she wants a lot of space, she usually needs to be somewhat close to deal damage. Heroes like Reinhardt, Orisa, and Roadhog are all really good options for easily just overrunning and beating Symmetra players. Tracer, Soldier, Cassidy, Mei, and Pharah are all good options for bursting her down or just simply outranging her. On support, you shouldn't really ever have to worry about Sim, but Lucio is a great way at allowing your teammates to quickly swarm her with his speed boost. And less mobile supports will have a problem if the Symmetra is constantly teleporting into your backline, so make sure you be careful where you play. Torbjorn is a medium range, low mobility burst hero with a turret and is countered by most long range heroes. Doomfist, Sigma, Roadhog, Orisa, and D.Va are all great counters for Torbjorn. You'll want to focus his turret whenever possible before engaging on him. Hanzo, Junkrat, Pharah, and Echo are all great heroes that can easily destroy Torbjorn and his turret from a safe range. Ana and Kiriko and Zenyatta are great picks for dealing with pesky Torbjorns from range as well in the support category. Tracer has low health but has insanely high sustained damage and mobility. Being able to burst her down or one-shot her is going to be the easiest way to counter Tracer. Outranging her and using vertical mobility is another great way to beat Tracers as well. Orisa, Roadhog, Sigma, and D.Va are all good at catching Tracer out and bursting her down with their abilities. As a DPS, outranging her is extremely important, and staying away from her will be key in beating her. Cassidy, Soldier, Torbjorn, Pharah, Echo, and Tracer herself are all great counters to Tracer. For supports, Baptiste, Kiriko, Lucio, and Moira can easily outmaneuver Tracer in most situations and escape to high grounds whenever they're being harassed by her. Lastly, Widowmaker is very dominant in long-range scenarios and can be easily countered by denying space or being counter-sniped. Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, Winston, and D.Va are all great options at pushing Widowmaker and not allowing her to easily pick off your team. Genji and Tracer fill the same roles as the tanks. They can easily deny space and poke at her, stopping her from easily picking your team off and denying her space. Hanzo, Sojourn, and Widowmaker are all good long-range counter snipers for Widowmaker, but your positioning will be key in winning these duels. For supports, Kiriko, Moira, and Lucio can easily avoid her sightlines or outright kill Widowmaker if given the chance. When you're playing Widow versus Widowmaker, you really want to always be looking for the enemy Widow and quickly trying to pick her off whenever possible. And as a support, whenever you're playing versus Widow, you really just want to avoid her sightlines at all costs or try and dive her and burst her down. That is all of the DPS, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.